In the deep darkness of a forgotten town, the imposing Villa Sinistra stood. It was a massive, decaying structure, surrounded by a now overgrown garden. The locals avoided it like the plague, reporting strange apparitions and nightly laments. A young photographer in search of fame and fortune, looking for a masterpiece that would make him famous, decided to challenge the curse and enter the villa. Inside, the photographer discovered a dusty room that seemed untouched for centuries. In the center of the room, a large portrait in an antique golden frame stood out. The young woman depicted had angelic features, but her eyes held eternal sadness. He began taking photos of the portrait, but each shot became more unsettling. As he snapped away, he heard a feminine laughter coming from the darkness, a chilling whisper that sent shivers down his spine. The presence of the woman in the portrait seemed to follow him everywhere. The photographer started experiencing increasingly eerie paranormal phenomena. Objects moved on their own, shadows darted through rooms, and whispered voices tormented him in the darkness of the night. His obsession with the portrait grew, becoming a fixation that eroded his sanity. The twist revealed that the young woman in the portrait had been imprisoned in the villa by a wicked family. Her love for a servant had incurred the wrath of her captors, leading to her tragic demise. The woman in the portrait began communicating with the photographer, imploring him to free her from her eternal imprisonment. But as the photographer prepared to do so, the truth behind the curse was unveiled. He himself was destined to join the young woman as a trapped ghost in Villa Sinistra. Tension reached its peak. The photographer was desperate, trapped in his obsession with the cursed portrait and in Villa Sinistra. He had tried every means to free the young woman from her terrible fate, but every effort seemed in vain. As he explored the villa in search of a solution, he entered a hidden room concealed behind a heavy tapestry. Here, he found an ancient diary that recounted the tragic story of the young woman and the atrocities committed by the family who had ruled the villa. He discovered a dark pact made with demonic entities to gain power and wealth, with the price being the sacrifice of the young woman. The photographer felt the presence of the woman in the portrait calling to him, begging him to end the curse. With a sigh, he approached the portrait with the resolve to free her, but just then, a dark shadow materialized behind him. It was the vengeful spirit of the wicked patriarch of the family that had sealed the young woman in the canvas. The patriarch, with a cold, mocking gaze, revealed to him the shocking truth. The young woman in the portrait had become an unwitting guardian of the villa's demonic secrets. To free her, the photographer had to take her place as the guardian of the curse. He had been deceived by the demonic entity, and now his soul would be bound to the villa for eternity. With a broken heart and terror in his eyes, the photographer suddenly found himself imprisoned in the canvas. His body disappeared from reality, while the young woman was finally free to rest in peace. Villa Sinistra plunged into darkness, and its secret remained a mystery, with the photographer condemned to wander forever in the shadows of his own madness. The twist had been revealed, but the price paid was higher than he could have ever imagined. In the heart of the city, the shadow of an imposing, decaying building loomed against the night sky. The abandoned hospital had once been a place of healing, but now lay silent and sinister like a tomb. Neighbors told tales of forgotten patients, horrific medical experiments, and lingering cries that echoed through the dark nights. A group of friends, undeterred by the legends, decided to explore the hospital for thrills and chills. At the hospital's entrance, a chilling breeze welcomed them. The corridors wound into darkness, and silence was broken only by the creaking of floorboards and their own footsteps. While exploring an operating room, they found an operating table stained with blood. As they examined the scene, they heard a faint moan, and before them, a haunting apparition materialized. It was a spectral surgeon, clad in a blood-stained surgical gown, with a cold and petrifying gaze. Terror spread among the friends as the surgeon seemed to continue his work, completely oblivious to their presence. Continuing their exploration, the group discovered a wing of the hospital that led to the basement. Here they found a series of cells locked with corroded metal doors. Inside, faded documents and testimonies of tormented patients told stories of suffering and captivity. One of these patients seemed to still be present as a spirit, seeking vengeance for the torment endured. As terror crept deeper into their souls, one of the group members made a shocking discovery. Hidden among the hospital's documents, they found evidence that their own grandfather had been a doctor at the hospital, involved in brutal experiments and treatments on patients. The ghost of their grandfather, tormented by guilt, sought redemption through the granddaughter, a member of the group. The horror of the hospital reached its climax. As the group divided between seeking redemption and struggling for survival, the grandfather and granddaughter reached a secret room in the hospital, hidden in the darkness. Here, the grandfather began to reveal the shocking truth about the experiments and tortures inflicted on the patients. The walls were lined with faded photographs and documents that told the story of horror. With tears in her eyes, the granddaughter understood the gravity of the situation. The grandfather implored his granddaughter to reveal the truth to the world, seeking his redemption. This was his only hope to end the suffering of the tormented spirits that still roamed the hospital. Meanwhile, the other friends were trapped in the hospital, haunted by vengeful spirits. The operating room, where they had made their disturbing discovery, filled with desperate cries as the tormented souls of the patients sought revenge. Objects moved on their own, and spectral shadows danced on the walls. The spiritual earthquake that ensued was so powerful that it seemed as if the afterlife was blending with the world of the living. The abandoned hospital was now engulfed in flames, but the price paid to reveal the truth was extremely high. The granddaughter and the grandfather managed to escape just as the building collapsed, but the other friends were left behind, trapped in the eternal darkness of the hospital and the fury of the spirits. The truth had been revealed, but the memory of the horror and the loss of human lives remained as indelible scars in the history of the abandoned hospital. In a remote corner of the world lay an island forgotten by civilization, surrounded by dark and impenetrable waters. Here, hidden amidst the foliage of an untouched forest, stood an old colonial house burdened with a dark past. This house, with its decadent charm, was chosen by a group of friends as the ideal location for an unforgettable vacation. The beauty of the surrounding nature, however, concealed a story that should have remained buried. The first night spent in the house was marked by a violent storm that shook the house's walls, making it seem as though the building itself was alive. As the wind howled and rain pelted down, the friends heard a call coming from the ocean. A ghostly shadow emerged from the waves and approached the shore. It was a spectral sailor, wrapped in a shroud stained with seaweed and salt, with eyes lost in the infinite. He began to walk slowly toward the house, leaving behind traces of salty water. The days passed in the apparent tranquility of the island, but the nights brought unsettling visions. The friends began to experience frightening visions of past events. They saw the ghostly sailor and other spirits in period clothing, who had suffered tragic fates on the island. They couldn't tell if they were going mad or if the island was truly haunted. Every night, the voices of the spirits sang mournful songs, memories of shipwrecks and betrayals. In an attempt to uncover the truth behind the apparitions and visions, one of the group members delved into the island's history. They discovered that the island had been a site of shipwrecks and tragedies, and the sailor was a man who had betrayed his crew, leading to their ruin. His spirit, along with those of people involved in the shipwrecks, was now bound to the island, condemned to relive their sins. One of the group members had a secret connection to this story, explaining the visions and the sailor's obsession with them. In the final chapter, tension reached its peak as the group was torn between the need to protect the member with the secret connection and the necessity to appease the sailor and the vengeful spirits. The storm raged outside the colonial house, lighting up the night with spectral flashes of lightning, while thunder tore through the darkness. The atmosphere was charged with electricity and terror. The ghostly sailor stepped forward, his spectral face twisted into a malevolent smile. Addressing the group, he began to reveal the truth hidden for centuries. The colonial house had been the site of numerous betrayals and murders linked to the sailor and those involved in the shipwrecks. The group member with the secret connection was, in fact, a descendant of the sailor and had inherited his tormented fate. In a crescendo of emotions, the sailor implored the group member to sacrifice themselves to end the curse that had haunted him for centuries. The decision was agonizing, the choice to save themselves or to end the torment of the sailor and the vengeful spirits. The other group members realized it was the only way to break the curse and find redemption for the sailor. As the storm reached its peak and lightning illuminated the horizon, the member with the secret connection accepted their fate and offered themselves as a sacrifice. The sailor approached them and, with a hand as cold as ice, touched them. In that moment, the group member was swallowed by the ocean's waters, and a spectral silence pervaded the colonial house. The island was finally appeased, the sea calmed, and the vengeful spirits faded into the darkness. The colonial house remained silent, a tomb for the island's secret. As the surviving group returned to civilization, they carried the weight of the sacrifice and the horror of that night with them. The island's story was buried, but the price paid to reveal it was high, and the twist had forever marked the lives of the survivors.